Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a PTR update. We got an update for our next set of masteries. Time frame for these things is probably going to be next week, Thursday. Not guaranteed, but it could be 2 weeks from now. But what we do know is the masteries are going to be the Zan Paladins. I really do wish they were called Expedition Knights. The I have forgotten, even though I read it like twice already. Conqueror Guards and the Vanguard Archers. So we got two seasonals, one unitary. So they're doing the range ones very slowly, trying to pace them out so that people don't go chuck another hissy fit just because range units are getting some love. Though I do think that the direction that they're going is bad. What I mean by that is they're just adding more damage. A lot more damage. Now, I'm going to read through the Zamachian Paladin's Mastery. So it comes with two parts, actually. It comes with a balance adjustment, so these are going to be innate changes, kind of like how the Spahis went. And then there's going to be the Mastery set. Now, the balance adjustment, so you got this info section where it's basically saying that what they want to do, which is enhance the unique role of small shield infantry units. Honestly, not going to work. Boost the functionality and practicality of exclusive skills. That is, again, really difficult when everything is just overloaded to hell. Everyone's just basically going to end up having a unique skill that increases their damage, increases their survivability to such an extent that it like dwarfs the battlefield. Though I must say, Smashi and Paladin is probably less likely to go out of control unless they do something super crazy. But I mean, like as we read through this, it's not as crazy as it seems. But balance adjustment, we got deal 80% more damage and increase the target number for 1 to 2 in raising shield state. So basically, when they're in their special defensive state, they're going to deal 80% more damage and be able to hit two targets. This is apparently going to be an increase of like 260%. Overall, they'll have 360% damage. They'll have 360% damage. It's a bit confusing how this works. Basically, like the increase amount is 260%, but they will be dealing 360% times their original damage. So it's a bit confusing how that works out. So besides that, we also have the target number of the shield counterattack in the shield raising state from 1 to 4. Massive increase from 1 to 4. This is 4 times the amount, 300% increase. Um, the shield counter is not actually as bad because it was a lower thing, but it has a natural daze effect. So um, units that are not immune to daze will get ham-fisted by the Samachian Paladins this way. But that is few and far between now, since a lot of units either has their own CC. Yeah, the logistics of this is just super whack. I'm not even sure if the counterattack is capped now. When it was first introduced, it was not capped, and you had like certain units that would try to hit the paladins, and all of a sudden they would just take massive amounts of damage all at once because they would just get constantly shield bashed. Whether or not that's fixed or whether or not that's still a thing, I'm not entirely sure. But if you just deal a lot of damage in one hit, it's probably not an issue. That being said, um, this is still a massive damage increase. We are treading into territory which could possibly lead to them dealing adequate damage. And I say adequate damage. Uh, in theory, this the number one will make their basic attack hit as hard as probably the um uh probably not that hard. Basically, I'm guessing the damage amount will probably in its raw state probably be around about 3.5. Um, Probably would get pushed down to around about 2 against most given damage resistance and stuff. So that's still to be seen. We They also received a reduce the basic cooldown of battle prayers by 15 seconds. I'm not entirely sure what the cooldown for this one was. I believe it's 50. Um, yeah, I think it's 50. I'm not entirely sure. So it could be reduced to 35 in this case, which means that you'll probably have like a 25-second cooldown if you kind of pushed it. But we'll have to wait and we'll have to wait and see. We'll basically need to test out what the actual duration I mean, actual cooldown is once we get our hands on it. We also have the reduce the damage taken within 5 seconds after Battle Prayer is activated by 20%. It's a decent amount, and stacked with everything, it's kind of crazy. You have to remember that Zan Paladins have two main passives. Damage taken from the front is reduced by 36%. If they get hit, they have a damage increase by 16% and a 32 defense increase. I'm not sure if that's armor or whether or not that's damage resistance, just straight out. We could be seeing some kind of multiplicative, which would end up in a lower value, but at the end of the day, we're looking at either 40 or 70% damage resistance, which is um, still a good amount. But 20% on top of all of that, we're pushing we're pushing it. We're really pushing it here. I definitely do think that this marching paladin should be tanky during the 5 seconds. They shouldn't die easily. Is what I'm feeling. Unless they get flanked, then they probably just get destroyed. So on to the actual mastery part, which has a couple of interesting things, but it's just the two main ones. So we got health increased by 420, blocking 80, piercing defense by 50, blocking 80 again, so 160, basically enough for another attack or another two attacks, depending on how threshold limits are worked out. We're looking at around an attack or an additional attack or so. So node 5, shield counters in shield raising state will knock down the enemy units. It already has a baked in daze. The fact that it's now going to knock down units, that's really strong considering that CC immunity is not a thing for a lot of units. And the units that does have CC immunity generally are in the meta. Any attack against these guys, especially like melee units, are going to get CC'd immediately. So again, it's just another unit that has a lot of CC baked into its kit. Uh, it's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to be really tough. There are units that I can see getting absolutely ham-fisted by the Sebastian Paladins just on the basis of this change to the CC. Units that have CC immunity, of course, will not see very much of a change except for the like damage coefficients. I am worried that they don't know how to handle CC without just giving everything immunity, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going to end up happening. Um, but we'll see how strong these guys are. I'm having a feeling that unless you got some way to deal with this, their counterattack, or yeah, their counterattack, uh, you're pretty much going to be useless against the Zan Paladins. Halberdiers probably be able to rip through them, mostly because they have enough block break and stuff. Depending on how things go, they could be really good against Phalanx if they don't get dazed out the ass, but they're too slow to catch Phalanx, so Phalanx will just probably walk backwards. Um, so we got some generic ones: reduce damage taken from polearm units, increase damage versus polearm units. Again, I hate these. It just bakes in counter effects that just tries to increase the cost effectiveness. Really terrible design because it's baked into masteries where, again, you either try to add something interesting or you just power scaling upwards. And this is power scaling upwards, but it's also power scaling in a particular direction against particular units, which is not really to my liking. Number 8, within 5 seconds after a battle pair is active, all enemy melee units that have hit the Smashing Paladins will suffer bleeding damage. How much this bleeding damage is will determine how good this last node is. I'm guessing if it's a percentage based on current health, it'd be amazing. If it's based on maximum health, it'd be amazing. Like basically, if it scales, really good. If it's like if the amount is small, less than probably a third of their health, it's going to be a non-factor. It'd probably be super good against units that have really high damage resistance, maybe. But if the bleed itself does less damage than their basic attack or their total output of their basic attack, it's the this would be just pretty much worthless. Also, is probably would be cool if it was stacking. Ah, but maybe that's a bit crazy. I don't like it, but it could work out. And how I'm guessing these guys are going to work out is they're going to be very offensive. You want to kind of maximize their time in the shield raising state. So it's a little bit iffy of whether or not they're just going to be good in their free attack mode or people will XV them because of the damage increase. The XV does have some time delay, which makes it a bit awkward to use compared to other units, but expedition the Marching Paladins were notorious back in the day of having this almost instant damage application, which basically mean that you could XV as fast as you could, and it would instantly just deal damage every time you XV'd, and it was funny because all you heard was the sound of the ch 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 constantly, and they were flashing every single time, so it was kind of blinding. All right, moving on to the Conqueror Guards, we have Info, which what they want to do is enhance the burst damage and sustainability of the Conqueror Guards by adjusting skill shock attack. I think they should have just increased the tankiness of Conqueror Guards. They are the weakest of the um, tier three sword and shield units between the prefecture guards and the squires, both who have mastery. The Conqueror Guards are the weakest, and they're pretty bad uh, when all things considered. The only good thing about them is they offer a little bit of crowd control, which um, which is more reliable than a lot of the other crowd control effects in Tier 3. But at the same time, the other units that do provide crowd control either are completely busted or stat-wise or completely worthless, like the the whooshing pikeman. Whooshing pikeman offers very powerful CC, but just for some reason, just not very good. And I think it's mostly because of just how easy it is to kill them. So they're also introducing Power Shield Bash into the skill Shock Attack. Increase the damage moving distance caused by the first shield bash. Sorry, hang on. Increase the damage and moving distance caused by the first shield bash during shock attack. The shield bash can attack two targets and grant 1 second of immunity to knockback days and airborne effects. I do think it's supposed to just be pure Susi immunity. The fact that they leave out knockdown is either very concerning or hilarious. Increase health by 220. So this is their mastery now. So that was just a bit of informational, and the important one from that one is probably taking the power shield bash. So the two attack and the CC immunity. For their mastery, they get health increase by 420, piercing defense by 50, slashing defense by 100, and health by 450. Again, the health amount is very small. We're talking, um, we're talking like less than 8% here. Less than 8% here. If my memory is correct, Conqueror Guards have around about 11,000 health, probably 10,800 or something. Um, would just not there in terms of tankiness, especially in terms of like damage output, just not matching up everywhere. And I don't understand why they're so stingy with the piercing defense here. They're only with 50, while the slashing defense gets 100. Maybe it's something to do with how their armor distribution is at the current time. Node 5, Shock Attack grants 30 damage reduction, which gradually decays to 0 within 3 seconds. Again, super stingy. They only want the damage resistance to be at the instance of activation, which again just overloads the ability to only focus on the first few seconds. It's concerning that they have these things but don't really want them to kind of like push through. I'm real like they want the impact to be there, they want the guarantee to be there, but they don't want it to carry through, which is again annoying because you want reliability and consistency rather than rather than focusing everything into, well, I mean, if you focus everything into like a single instance, the reliability stays high, kind of thing. But like, I don't like jam packing all of the power and all of the um, kind of performance in and banking on it on a single instant. But that's also due to the fact that I play with so much lag, or it's just that I'm bad. We also have generic reduced damage from polearm units and increased damage versus polearm units, 400 and 300 respectively. The first three attacks during shock attacks will become shield bash attacks. Three shield bashes, of which the first one will be the power shield bash. So yeah, you got that two target. I think personally the shock attack should be increased to two. You should you should be trying to even out the general performance. Prefecture Guards has the leg up on everyone by having Cover Commander and the +1. The Conqueror Guards nominally has a little bit more damage, but that is still to be seen because the application of damage is so low with the contact of the whole unit being so low. So I think it would be right by Conqueror Guards to get the +1 on all of their attacks, but at the same time, it's fine if they don't. Loading it into shock attack is also okay, I guess. Not my liking. I really do wish that they balanced units as a whole instead of as parts. Um, I do think Conqueror Guards will be interesting to see how it works. It is going to become a burst style unit more so. I might actually switch to top line. I've been bottom line for the longest time. Normally, I rely on um, the natural damage amount uh, from the ability itself to carry me through, but loading up on damage could be a way of going. And finally, we have the Vanguard Archers. Similar to the Zan Paladins, it comes in two parts. So we got the balance adjustments and the mastery. So for the balance adjustment, they've completely modified the effect of move and fire. So the old one was fire while advancing on target, lasts for 15 seconds, and has no cooldown. The modified one, the skill can be toggled. So now it's a toggle skill when activated. The unit will shoot while moving forward and turn to shoot when moving backwards. And the shooting damage is in moving will decrease by 18%. When deactivated, troops will prioritize moving and will not shoot while moving. I don't like the penalty. The penalty is completely unnecessary in this case because um, unless there are other things happening, the penalty for the fire and move is completely unnecessary. We are comparing it to other tier 3 ranged units, all of which has extraordinarily powerful effects, which don't really have very many drawbacks. Incendiary archers is probably a good example of a big drawback that comes in logistically, which is the ammo consumption. Maybe Namcans is also has a very big penalty, which should be removed as well. I'm not sure. Like a lot of these things, I feel like these penalties just makes no sense, or these penalties are just archaic. That being said, if anything, it shouldn't be decrease in damage. It should be decrease in fire rate. Um, I think decreasing the damage does more of a disservice to range units in particularly because high fire rate um, makes ranged units feel worse because their impact is very small and will only realistically come out over time, making high DPS kind of like Longbowmen for the longest time never had a really good DPS track record, but people loved it because their relative damage all came in similarly at the same time. After the first changes, they came in same time, basically volley after volley, just smash, smash. The impact felt really great. Swine feathers as well. Statistically, they are really bad in terms of DPS. Um, I think they're like 30% less than like their competitors. But I have to kind of push back on like their effectiveness. They have longer range, and I say longer range. They have longer range, even though in their unit trait it said they have short range. They're longer range, um, and just generally much higher accuracy. The higher accuracy and longer range pushes them to be far better than they have any right to be, especially for a musket unit. But they feel great because all of their damage comes in all at once. They've got a really good fire pattern. Unfortunately, they shoot at the weirdest things through walls and stuff. All right. With that being said, the mastery section I'm also kind of disappointed with, but at the same time, I can understand why. So we have increased piercing damage by 70, increased piercing armor penetration by 70, increased piercing armor penetration by 70 again, so you got two of those, sorry. I read the exact same thing, and I knew it was there. And increased health by 420. Um, honestly, I don't see why they would need to increase the armor penetration at this point. They actually have pretty high armor penetration at around about 1800. I think their damage is also 18 or maybe slightly higher. The health increase is a little bit sad. I do think for Vanguard Archers in particular, their firing arcs is really savage. Sorry, their firing arc is really bad, where even at distance of about 60 meters, they're basically shooting almost vertically. And I don't even think they can reliably hit because of how long the arrows take when they try to shoot at 80 meters. So Vanguard Archers is kind of a unit where you need to be using them within 60 meters to get just the right amount of hit rate or just the right amount of like arcing to get a lot of the projectiles into the target you want. Still, probably just to have something to do with accuracy. Continuing on, we have Node 5, which is increased fire rate by 30%, but reduces accuracy by 15% during movement fire. Don't like this, absolutely hate this. I think this should be reversed. Remove the fire rate entirely and increase accuracy by 15%. If anything, I think they should increase projectile speed. One of these things should be increased projectile speed. So how this works out logistically is that it's realistically supposed to be like some kind of 15% damage increase. You're getting the fire rate increase, but you get a accuracy penalty. So they're just trying to increase the volume of fire, which kind of makes sense. They want to for Vanguard archers want to shoot a lot of arrows, shoot a lot of arrows as much as possible into the enemy and whittle them down as they approach. Which again is a really cool theme. I'm very unfortunate that it just like doesn't work very well because they're not shooting in a way where they have a high hit rate, especially at long range, and they don't normally are able to support. Um, they don't normally have the support of units nearby. They get caught out a lot because of their relative squishiness. Increase movement speed by 15% during move and fire. Again, you could already have like 20% increase. I went with a line where it only gives me 10%, so 25% in total. My goodness, these guys are going to be running at like 8. Whoa. I either underestimated the amount or overestimated the amount. They're almost hitting 9 speed. 8.5 8.5 speed for an infantry unit. Oh, wow, man. Slap on a sprint doctrine. These guys are going to be lightning. I'm going to maybe I will put a speed doctrine on. If the Vanguard Archers, if I find the Vanguard Archers fun, I might use them again. I used to use them on field battles really long time ago. Used to chase down cavalry, um, but it's been so long since then. And most of the time, anyone who was smart would just run at me. Node 8, there is a chance of 30%. There's a 30% chance to shoot an extra arrow during move and fire. Again, pretty good. 30% increase in damage. Wondering how the extra arrow ends up. I do think Artemis shouldn't be 2 arrows with the same trajectory. I think it should be 2 arrows, but they're offset from each other, either by a fixed amount or by a random amount. So you could get 2 arrows hitting the same target, but it would be some nominal randomness where it's lower than, well, where it wouldn't happen often, but it would be plausible that would happen. And that's all. Those are the masteries. Hope you guys think that this is the right direction for CB. I definitely do think that they're interesting. I don't like some things, particularly the fact that they're just ramping up the damage more. I get that the damage has to be ramped up more. I just wish that they nerfed the damage down, buff up the survivability, and kind of let us get back into the fighting part of CB, but that is still to be seen. Really think the Smashing Paladins should have probably seen some more defense increases. I definitely think the Vanguard Archers really need utility in terms of fixes with their arc, fixes with their projectile speed, and I I'm feeling that people don't like range very much, but I think a health increase, I think a fire rate decrease needs to happen because the rate of fire for a lot of ranged units are just getting ridiculous. I sorry, it was already ridiculous. Um, and I definitely do think that the health increase needs to be there. The the range damage drop off needs to come back harder than ever because it's really important that the effectiveness of range be measured in long distances. We're getting a lot of problems with people maximizing the distance of their range instead of maximizing the damage of their range. Even though you're only losing around about 10-ish% with the longbows at maximum range, and probably about a third damage when we're talking about musket units, it's it's really it's really terrible design to kind of have people try to stay away from the battle when realistically ranged units should be tankier, so that even if even if a melee unit tries to run up to you, you've got a chance of gunning them down without just being able to gun them down from a million miles away. The whole point I was just trying to get at is that if I can kill you at max distance, I will kill you at max distance and stay away from you. If I can only kill you when you get close to me, I'm gonna take that risk to get close to you to kill you, kind of thing. Whether or not they try to, I want them to do that. I want to be able to use ranged units close to the front lines. I want to be incentivized to use ranged units without having the mm, the pain of to deal with just the fragility of the unit. I don't think that will happen. People hate, well, I've tried to make suggestions to that effect, but people don't like that direction. So I want to just I kind of want to just ask whether or not people would be open to the idea of making ranged units not glass cannons. And I mean, like, most ranged units aren't even glass cannons. Um, they're literal paper. They're a small breeze could kill them, but they still have the damage for the most part. Not that anyone likes them having the damage. Anytime range has too much damage, people complain about it instantly. Not that any other unit being OP having too much damage is like, oh, just because melee is a bit better. I get it that it's a bit more it's a bit different because range can completely dwarf the battlefield and it changes the entire battlefield in its entirety. And I can definitely feel that, especially in defensive. Well, when you're attacking into a range heavy defender that has ground advantage, home ground advantage, absolutely horrendous. Heilong Fjord is really bad for attackers. If you don't Basically, if they piecemeal out the attackers, you're going to be shredded. But if you just stomp everything on the ground, then you just win. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That is all for the PTR update. I hope you guys enjoyed. But other than that, my name's Jessica. Have a nice day. Bye for now.